grandson of her daughter-in-law, rather than any blood kin, proved her generosity. He just wished she hadn't chosen a party as a way of expressing her pleasure in his accomplishment. Dozens of guests milled through the parlor of the stately Stedman home, students, professors, church members, and neighbors. Many had entered the ornately carved oak doors as first-time visitors. But none looked as uncomfortable as Thomas had felt during his first weeks in Nadine's home. Her 3-story townhouse on prestigious Beacon Street, overlooking the Common, was so different from his simple, clapboard home in Gettert, Kansas. His entire childhood home had less space than the parlor of Nadine's ridiculously large residence. Even now, after 6 years of living beneath her tiled roof, he sometimes still experienced a sense of displacement. He wished he could set the odd feeling aside, relax, and be as at ease as his friend Harry Severt seemed to be. Right now, beside the punch bowl on the opposite side of the room, Harry conversed with 2 young ladies. His posture and gestures conveyed a state of complete self-assurance. Nadine caught Thomas's elbow and gave it a little squeeze. "I believe the last of the guests have arrived. You may now leave the welcoming post and mingle. Be certain to speak to each person in attendance. Preferential treatment to one guest is considered impolite. Be certain to avoid any semblance of preferential treatment." Thomas resisted, growling in frustration. He'd received these instructions at least half a dozen times already, and he knew the reason. Nadine didn't want him spending all his time with Daphne Severt, Harry's younger sister, who had accompanied Harry on several visits to Nadine's home. Nadine didn't seem to care for Daphne, and Thomas wasn't sure why. He admitted that when he'd first met Daphne, she'd seemed to be as pesky as his own little sisters. But lately, well, she'd grown into the loveliest creature he'd ever seen. "Go ahead now," Nadine prompted. Catching her skirt between thumb and fingers, she glided across the carpeted floor, with her shoulders back and chin held high, nodding and smiling as she filled the role of the perfect hostess. Thomas cleared his throat, squared his shoulders, and edged his way around the periphery of the room. Although he did his best to appear as poised as Nadine desired him to be, his large size, coupled with the crowded room, made graceful movements impossible. He'd inherited his pa's height and breadth, and he never felt more monstrous than when standing beside the diminutive Daphne Severt. Although Nadine often bemoaned the difficulty in locating suits to accommodate Thomas's frame, Daphne had once said his size made her feel protected. He scanned the room, seeking the young woman. He couldn't spend a lot of time talking to her, not with Nadine's eagle eyes observing his every move, but just a glance would satisfy him for the moment. Daphne had arrived with Harry a half-hour ago, looking beautiful in a shiny dress the same color as the ripe sand plums that grew wild on the prairie surrounding his Kansas home. Her long black hair had been pulled up into a ponytail as thick as his horse's tail, but instead of being straight, it hung in long coils that bounced when she walked. He looked for that bouncing tail of hair, and his heart jolted when he spotted it. As usual, she was the focus of attentive male gazes. A stab of jealousy propelled him forward. "Excuse me," he muttered, weaving between clusters of guests. "Excuse me, please." He reached the group and stepped directly into Daphne's line of vision. Her face lifted to his, and her rosy